Right. Welcome to Sis Take Care podcast. We are so excited to have Kacey Venning, who is the author of Wrestling with Peace. And she's here to talk about her nonprofit work and also the faith that drives the type of change that's internal and outside, that works that works inside and out. Kacey, thank you for being here and welcome to Sis Take Care.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about the podcast, your journey. Just really excited about being a guest today. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. That means so much to me because I don't know if you remember this, but the first time I met you in person, we were actually working together at a consultant agency, but didn't know it. We were working on different sides of a different project. But I was chatting with you and you said something really specific, and you were talking about the community being empowered and making sure that, community people were constituents, that they were actively being considered in the plans that were being made.
Yeah.
And something about that, I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know your first and last name, but I said, are you Kacey Venning? Because it just said KC on your shirt. And I said, and you said, yes. And I showed you your website that I had looked at.
Yes.
I was like, I follow you. I didn't even know I was talking to the same person. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because when I first moved to Atlanta over a decade ago, I've been here a long time, I was like, where are the folks who are committed to doing the work, connected to communities, doing real substantive, impact-driven work, and who are also talking about empowering women in particular. And your website was page 1, position 1 of Google. And I need you to know that because part of what has transpired since then is a lot of people talk about empowerment.
Yeah.
A lot of people sprinkle in women empowerment. But not everybody has the longevity that somebody like you has in having actually done that labor of work and done it from a community-driven perspective. So thank you for modeling and being the example in Atlanta that other people have been able to replicate and do and take it. And, we're going to have brunch and we're going to kiki. And that's cool. But at the end of the day, if it's not impact-driven, if it's not making a difference for ourselves and our community, then is it really empowerment?
Right.
And that's one of the things that I feel like you kind of have laid part of that groundwork for. How have you seen the landscape of women empowerment change when we talk about women taking care of themselves and taking care of the community? How has that been shifting for you?
I think the shift has really been about now taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? I think if we're honest, Black women have really held, our communities up. And sometimes even when we were broken, depressed, despondent, not sure, even when our faith was wavering, we still knew that we had to go out and hold our communities up. And I think what I've seen over the last probably 18 months, 2 years, is that we're now turning that inward, saying, okay, yes, I know I still have to do this, but I have to also take care of myself. And I think it also looks like us doing a better job of taking care of each other.
I love that.
We hear a lot now on social, she's a girl's girl, and, just making sure that people are really celebrating, the women who are not in competition with one another, who are not looking to tear someone down in order for them to be able to run their own race, and realizing that we have to be in this together. I mean, really in the state of the world that we're in.
Yeah.
I've been saying it, and I think we're looking at it now, is that if Black women really decided they didn't want to do anything and got together and collectively said, we're stopping, the world would literally fall apart.
Oh,
and
God forbid.
And so, but we're starting to see what happens when we pull back. When we start to say, I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the energy, I don't have the desire to fix this for you anymore. You're going to have to figure this out. Yes, it is a dumpster fire. Yes, I'm probably going to have to come back with my hoes a little later, but let me rest for a moment. So when I come back, we can get it done.
That's good, though, because actually, and I want to put this in the context, you have actually run for political office, right? You've run a really strong campaign, a campaign driven by values and the people, and had to put yourself out there and talk about issues and actually go to town halls and really be able to speak to neighbors and knock on doors and fundraise. So when you're speaking from the place of, I presume that kind of conversation around the 92% when we talk about voting, it's not from a place of passivity, right?
No.
And it's also not just from a place of the vote is the only civic action that you've taken.
Correct.
And so I want to contextualize that for people because a lot of times the conversation around the 92%, I won't speak to the people who are the critics of that because it's not relevant. They're not relevant. But I would say the folks who are the detractors who are in the 92% who are saying, wait a minute, how can we just let this happen? How can we just take our hands off of this? This is the future for our children and our lives. I hear in what you're describing is not quitting, but resting.
Resting and active rest, right? So,
say more.
Yeah, what I mean by that is that I cannot walk away from the young people and the families that I serve, my church community, the family that I've created. And so when I say active rest, that means that I'm quietly taking care of those that are in my immediate circle, right? Understanding that you still have needs, I'm still going to meet those. I think right now, what we're seeing is that we're not using our megaphones to be able to push somebody else's agenda right now.
Ooh, that's good.
Right? So when we say that we're resting,
yes,
because of who we are, we can't not do anything, right? We're still serving in our organizations and our faith communities. We're still serving in our schools and with our families. So we're still working, but we're no longer running to the megaphone to say, come along and do this with us. We're going to take care of what we have to take care of. Y'all will figure it out. And when we're ready to come back to it, we'll get there then. But we're going to do what we need to do for what is in our immediate circle right now and let that be enough.
Oh my God, that gave me chills. I'm serious because it has taken such a toll, not just this very convoluted election.
Yeah.
The last 2 elections, 2 qualified women.
Yeah.
Above and beyond qualified women, oh God, have been put before this country.
Yeah.
And Black women en masse as a voting bloc, as an organizing force, as a voice for the community and children and youth and disability advocates and those who are educators and those who are fighting for economic rights and justice have been, beating the pavement. Okay? Yeah. The pavement has been worked. In heels. These heels was not made for this kind of walking, but we're doing it. I think about the marches in the 60s and 70s and watching the footage, and they were in their church dress vests. They were not in Nikes, okay? They were in their Mary Janes.
Yeah.
And doing that walking there. It's like the extra pain that women who have been committed to community work have always been doing. Yeah. Even to that it's not a minor detail to me, but even to that extent that we are going to put on things that physically will be uncomfortable in this environment and break ground trying to do this work. And to think about the beatdown, the political warring that has taken place. And in war, there is a time when your colonels and when the folks who are on the front lines with you, they say retreat.
Absolutely.
Not surrender, but they say retreat. And why do they say that? They say we need to get our wounded to care. We need to get the medical team to triage the people who are most hurt.
Absolutely.
We need to clear the wreckage. We need to regroup.
Yeah. We have to reset.
We need to reset.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can't spell reset without rest.
That's right.
We need to rest and reset for a second. We need to get some perspective and figure out, is there another strategy? Are there other people who will ally with us?
Yeah.
are there different ways that we need to work?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I hear you saying is getting at that.
Yeah.
And that is more of the conversation that I'm wanting to be a part of,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to what I think some people out of just weariness, right?
Yeah,
And just really feeling just frustrated and defeated are kind of like, you know what? I don't even want to hear of it. Don't even tell me about anything that's going on. I'm going to sip my tea. I'm going to light my candle, and I'm going to ignore the world. And I'm like, I'm going to ignore the news too. I'm not going to see the news every day. I can't sit through that.
No.
Like my mental health and
it's not good for it. It's not.
like my nervous system can't.
I had to stop once I realized that my blood pressure was literally rising as moments went by watching the news. Like I have physical reactions to, I said, you know what? I can't do it anymore.
But you're not the only person who talks about that and the physical ramifications of trying to engage in that. It's like, I only want to engage in conversations that I know are meant to be, like the intention behind it is to be nourishing, is to say, hey, we do need to think collectively, but we don't have to subject ourselves to tomfoolery and shenanigans in order to think about how do we survive together. So I appreciate that perspective, because that really just kind of like rested with me. Like that really resonates. So for those who don't know, how would you introduce yourself? Because listen here, okay? I have to go eeny, meeny, miny, which hat do I pull from? Because every Black woman I know, okay, she has at least 6 hats, girl, that she wears. And you are no exception. So, you know, ordained minister, okay, and a worship leader and service in your faith-based community, in your church. You are the co-founder of Hey Atlanta, which we love. Hey Atlanta, help empowering youth.
Thank you.
And AKA the co-founder of the Water Boys, and working with the young men who have also sometimes been mischaracterized, but entrepreneurial minded young men who want to make themselves better and want to fight for their families. You've done a lot of that work and been alongside those young men in the streets, okay?
Literally.
Those young men have been in your home. Literally. Been in places where you have fed them spiritually and fed them physically and nurtured them alongside that. Obviously, you ran for elected office previously, and wanting to advocate for youth and wanting to advocate for education. And she got the nerve, y'all. Listen, she got the nerve to be having a whole conference around women in impact-driven social justice organizations and faith-based networks who are leading. And you're starting an initiative on women who are leading in the nonprofit and the community organizational space. She's also an author. Did I mention? Pick up her book, Wrestling with Peace, which we're going to talk about soon. How would you introduce yourself? What do you want to say about you? How should we call forth your name today?
Crazy. When you lay it all out like that, and newest title is PhD student, right? So
you just graduated.
I know, but
shout out to IDC.
Yes. But what I realized is that all these facets of my life really are just parts of a sum total. Okay. And so, like, honestly, I'm a servant. I just want to be used, right? And that's not about being deep or philosophical, but I realize that everywhere I find myself, it is to be of service. That may look like physically, spiritually, mentally, helping people think through things, creating opportunities for folks to see their own value and worth and the impact that they're making. And so I really want to be someone who's a disruptor in a way, right? In spaces that we've gotten really, really comfortable in. People have described me as a very hard truth teller, right? I'm not afraid of saying the hard things. I think I lean a lot onto some of my Southern roots. Like, I can sweeten it up for you a little bit, right? So it doesn't sting too big, but you gonna hear what has to be said. And all of it, again, is rooted into making sure we are good, right? Like, I fully understand that in all these hats that I wear,
Yeah.
it's because I want Black people to be okay. I want us to be more than okay. And I also want our young people to understand that they are well equipped, right, to have whatever kind of life they want, regardless of their starting point. Even when we look at the work here in Atlanta, I tell them, like, I've been here 26 years now. Right. So this is home for me. Right.
Yeah.
I feel like Atlanta belongs to me too. Right. Like, I've cut my teeth here. I came here at 17 to go to Morris Brown as a freshman. But for even these young people, right, who I've been here longer than they've been alive, this city is still more yours than it is mine. And the fact that you can't see what is happening and believe that this was built for you is a problem for me. Yeah. And so everything that I do is with that lens in mind, making sure that this city is prepared to turn it over to the young people that it belongs to.
That's powerful. And is that the perspective that you take when you are doing the work for Hay? Absolutely.
You know, people don't always know how to kind of quantify us or describe what we do. If I'm in a deep setting, I tell them, well, you know, we're going to minimize latent effects of poverty. Right. But really what it is like, I'm a hold these stakeholders and these city leaders, their feet to the fire to ensure that when you are making policy decisions, that you have these young people in mind. They did not ask to be born into poverty. They did not ask to be born into neighborhoods that are ridden with violence and gangs and drugs. And that was not their choice. And we can't always fault them for the choices they make while in it, because it is about survival. It really is. I cannot think about tomorrow when I'm in a state of emergency. And I tell people all the time, think about the times that you've had to go to the emergency room. You didn't care about what you missed, what appointment was gonna go, you know, unattended. You could care less about what show you was gonna miss on the television. You didn't care anything about making sure that that pain or that wound was taken care of in the moment. And once that was taken care of, you now have the latitude to be able to think about something else. And so if they're constantly living in a state of emergency, they do not have the bandwidth to make a decision that's going to benefit their tomorrow. They're trying to survive their today.
That's so incredibly powerful. And you know a little bit about this, but part of this podcast for me is born out of being in the emergency room.
Yeah.
And being in the moment of the emergency and being like, I might die today.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you what else was going on in the world in that time. I don't know, like, did something famous? Did somebody famous do something special? Did a new astronaut land on the moon? I don't know.
It didn't matter.
But that was a true state of emergency, and you're absolutely right. Is that the only thing that you're thinking about in those types of crisis points is the next breath?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
And just going, what's going to happen in the next hour? Every minute that a nurse or a doctor doesn't come by and give an update, it's like, I don't know what's happening. I'm bracing myself for whatever the next thing may be. And so to think about our young people in particular, because there are lots of people around the world who live in that type of chaos, but in the most economically developed country in the world, to think about children having to live in that mind frame, in that state of being, and that people have choices that they make that reinforce those, that say, sorry, kid, next generation, not your turn. It's disheartening in that way. How do you stay encouraged? Because you live a life and in a world where you don't avoid the monster. You go to the monster and look the monster of poverty, the monster of injustice, the monster of mistreatment and childism, where kids are criminalized even before they've done anything, right? Those types of things. You look that monster in the face and you say, I'm giving you hell. How do you spiritually and mentally stay encouraged to continue to serve, not from drained, not from a brittle heart, but from a place of like real love.
Yeah, I mean, just to be completely honest, I mean, I have those moments where I'm like, I don't want to do this. It's not working. It's not making a difference. I will happily go do something else and be able to clock out at 5:01 and be satisfied.
Listen,
right?
give me this 9 to 5 that y'all talking about where everything stops.
Yeah.
And you just go home.
Yeah.
And it's all like you're about you from 5 to midnight. Yeah. Really? Oh, that's nice.
I don't know what that life is. And here's the truth, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But I have those moments where I'm just like, it would just be way easier if I
like it,
did,
don't it?
Right? But I give myself moments of being afraid. I give myself moments, right? I give myself permission to feel the things.
Yeah.
I'm learning tools, right? So I may set a timer, right? Like, okay, I'm going to have this snotty nose cry for an hour, but when this timer goes off, I'm going to wipe these tears. I'm going to regroup. I'm going to figure out what else is going to happen, right? I give myself moments to say, God, these here your people. Like, I've done all I can do. You got it from here. Like, there's nothing else I can do in this moment, and having to be okay with it. Because here's the thing. I think a lot of times for people who do this work, if we're not careful, we don't operate in God-like characteristics. We begin to think we are God.
Say more words. Say more things like that. Tell us more.
And so for me, I realized that I'm really just a vessel. That they still have their own journey.
Yes.
Right? They still have their own choices that they have to make.
Yeah.
I'm only responsible for letting them know here is another way.
You have the option.
You have the option. Yes. And I tell people all the time, when you give people options, they will choose the better of those options. But you have to give them real options that make sense for their lives. And I realize that when I have young men in my life that I love like I birthed.
Yeah.
Some of them are sitting behind bars. And I would cry like, well, what else could I have done? Did I not do something right? Did I not try hard enough? And then I realized there's nothing else to do. And then that's when I have to give them back. Right? Yeah. We're all just stewards, right? None of these people belong to any of us.
Yeah.
We're stewards of the relationship that we get to have with them. And so I've learned how to sit in that. Doesn't mean it always feels good, but I've learned how to sit in it. And I'm also understanding the use of lament as a strategy.
Wait now, hold on, because let me say Holy Ghost power. This is the second time that specific word lament has been utilized to describe something to me. And I'm talking about within a couple of days. And while I understand the word, it's not in the general lexicon, friends.
No.
Can you share a little bit about what you mean with lament is a tool for you?
Yeah. Meaning that to lament is to mourn, to cry out, right? To be upset about something that is usually outside of your control. And to use it as a strategy means I'm going to take this pain, right?
Yeah.
Sit with it, identify it, and then figure out what needs to be done as a result of this pain being created in the first place. So if I begin to use lament as a strategy, that means I have the room and the permission to cry, to cuss, to fuss, to scream, to holler, to throw my hands up in a sense. But then now understanding that, how do I take that collective energy and redirect it someplace else, right?
That's so good.
And then also knowing that I need you to know what I'm mourning. So when I bring something to you, whether it's policy related, community related, around mobilization of people around the issue, no, let's name the thing, right? I'm in your face because it grieves my heart that young people have to call and beg for $2 to be able to eat something because of everything happening, money on their family's food stamp or SNAP benefits account did not hit at the right time, right? And so understanding that it's not just, oh, we live in a food desert, we live in food insecurity. Why do we live in a food desert? Why is there food insecurity? Let me name the thing that grieves my spirit. Let me name the thing that I am mourning because we've lost, so that you understand the brevity of it and the fullness of what needs to take place so that we can then make different decisions.
It just reminds me so much of the quote, and I hope that I'm getting the spirit of the quote that says, if I say as a Christian, I want to feed the poor, you're applauded and people say, yes, please do that. And if I ask, why are they poor? Then they call you a communist, or they call you some other kind of, scrutinized political word, because now you've somehow deviated from the roots of faith and ventured into something ungodly to question why harm has to happen in ways where we know that care could take place.
Yeah. And I think too, and I think also that is us approaching our faith, right? In a perspective and in a way that makes us comfortable. And so, like, when I look at really the life of Jesus, he was a disruptor, right? Jesus asked the questions of why. And it wasn't about us, not getting in line. For me, if I really want to be a Christ follower, it is disrupting the status quo, because that is literally what Jesus's life was. He was not a conformist. He did not conform ever. He talked back to the politicians of the day. He questioned, right? He demanded accountability. He rolled up in temples and said, this is not what this is designed for. Yeah, it makes you feel good and you making money, but not here, not now, right? You have some level of responsibility in your own healing. Pick up your bed and walk. By your faith, you are healed, right? So this idea of a passive savior, I don't know.
He said, "That's not the Jesus that I am familiar with." Okay?
I don't know a passive savior. Nothing Jesus did was passive.
That's good.
And so, for me, part of me walking my faith out as a minister, as a leader, as an advocate, is calling attention to the things in society that make us have to heal in the first place. And I think you're absolutely right. Those are now the questions that we need to start asking. Yeah, we're going to feed you because you're hungry, but let's also, while we're feeding you, figure out why you had to be hungry in the first place.
Listen here, I hope that this is the roots and the foundation of what we getting for your next work in this PhD work. And maybe there's a book that's going to come out from that perspective, because I can't wait to read that. But we got to dive into this. Listen, we are here with Sis Take Care podcast. Our special guest, Kacey Venning, and she's the author of Wrestling with Peace, Where Mental Health Meets Faith. And y'all, I have to read a piece of this, that this whole book, I want to tell you, the book itself, just even its existence, is super important to me, because when mental health meets faith, already, you talk about being a disruptor. It's already disruptive just in the title. There are still people who are not even sure how to touch the topics together, how to bring them together. And that's one of my objectives with this particular podcast, is that care would be in the intersection of faith, hope, and love, right? That we can talk about what does it mean to care for ourselves, care for our sisters, and care for this community that we love in ways that are healthy, that are not over-functioning, that are not about burnout, that are not about self-neglect, right? And you do that so well in this book. Let me also just say about this book that everybody knows I love my sisters. I have two sisters. My sister was visiting at my home and she saw the book and said, "Oh, okay," just picking it up. And she read through this book in a day and a half.
Wow.
She said, "Oh, every page was a page turner," and it was so enlightening for her. And that ministered to me, right? Reminder how the power of words and the power of books. But let me just read for those who are listening, y'all. You go pick up this book. It's available. We can leave the links in the chats and everything. Yes. Okay. This is in your preface. "And I won't let go until you bless me." This is a quote from Jacob. This was Jacob's rallying cry as he wrestled with God. It's been one that many people have suffered great sorrow and lost in their cry as well, looking for solace, comfort, and peace. How many of us find ourselves fighting for solace, comfort, and peace of mind? At times it seems fleeting, ever eluding us, especially for those who suffer with mental illness such as depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, and a host of others. Jacob was wrestling to be free of the thing that had him bound mentally, physically, and spiritually. I too find myself wrestling with peace. How do we get this book? How did you come to a place where you wanted to write something so transparent, authentic, but also spiritually relevant in Christian faith in particular?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of other traditions, faith traditions, where there's a little bit more room to speak about mental health. Christianity in my life has not been one of them.
Yeah.
And so how did you, as an ordained minister and, as a person who is an advocate for others, how did you come to the place where you were writing about your journey from a faith-based perspective?
Yeah. It was critical to my survival. It was. I was initially diagnosed with major depressive disorder and general anxiety disorder at 16. Okay. And I've always grown up in a Christian household. And it was one of those things where, honestly, because Black people always suffering something, like who has time to go see a therapist? It wasn't something that was always easily or readily available to us in terms of access, honestly, and the proximity to be able to get that type of help. Again, if we were to run to the therapist every time something happened, we would spend our lives on the couch, right?
Yes.
And so I think, honestly, subconsciously, those things just built in, we have to find another way. And so a lot of that other way was, we'll just pray. Get more involved in church, right? Increase your faith. And I tried that and it worked until it didn't, right? And so it worked until I had a second full-on nervous breakdown and realized that, no, I need other tools, right? That may look like medication, that may look like ongoing therapy and counseling, but I need other tools. And I began to see family members and friends who were silently suffering too, and realize somebody has to say something. And so I'm okay being that person. I'm not a licensed professional, not a licensed therapist. And so I can only write from my experience. And I knew that I had to have both. I needed Jesus and therapy, right? I needed both of those things. And for me to reconcile that I could have both, I had to begin to read the Bible differently. I mean, even as we're, filming this, we're in the season of Lent, right? And we think about the road to resurrection and Jesus's journey to the cross. You could say Jesus had an anxiety attack when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane. Like, God, look, I know what I'm supposed to do. I don't want to do it. Please take this bitter cup from me. This got to be a different way. I'm about to lose my mind. I'm hearing stuff. I'm seeing stuff. I do not want this, right? And
sweating blood.
Right? Because he was so stressed. I mean, even to the point where God told Elijah, right? Go eat something, take a nap. go lay down. Like, you cannot handle what is happening right now. So go rest your nervous system, right? And then let's get up and try this again. You know, and if we really read beyond the churchy catchphrases, everybody that we look at in terms of biblical characters had a mental health episode in their faith walk, trying to accomplish what it is that they have been called and commissioned to do.
Wow.
And so I'm like, it's right there for us, right? And so if they experienced it, and if Jesus himself experienced it, and I know that's probably blasphemous for some people to think that way, whatever, right? The reality is it's the truth of it. And okay, well, if Jesus experienced it, I can experience it and I can get through it too. But we have to talk about it, because there are some things that, yes, what prayer does for me in those moments is allow me to calm down enough to think clearly about what the next step is. And sometimes that next step is finding a professional. When you are hurt physically, you go see a doctor. Yeah. Right?
That's true.
So same thing with our mental and our emotional health. We go see professionals, right? We can't always fix it with just the scripture and with just prayer. It has to sometimes be accompanied with something else. That's just like with our eating. I can bless my food all day, but if I'm eating fast food and greasy food and junk food, it's not healthy for my body just because I said, Lord, bless it.
That's a good way of looking at it. And I can imagine that people who are not familiar with trying to look at the Word of God in a more nuanced way may have a hard time hearing what you're saying. Yeah. But here's how I understand it. Number one, I heard you say, for my survival, right? And we believe that the Holy Spirit is used to help us remember things, help us interpret, help us to understand. And it sounds like what I take away from that is that God led you to say, look at the Word again to see yourself and see the tools that I have shown you and how I have helped other people navigate life under dire circumstances, under stress, under anxiety, under pressure and the weight of life. Absolutely. Under war, under famine. It's here. And as you encounter some of these difficult seasons in your life, don't feel that you're so far from me. Yeah. Right? Because I have touched the lives of people who have been in those same types of circumstances where they felt lost, where they felt confused. Definitely. And so it may be grappling with labels and diagnoses as opposed to looking at what are the symptoms. Yeah. Because if we look at the symptoms, like we were talking about Jesus is crying out to God, knowing what must happen. Absolutely. All knowing, understanding his purpose, and saying, I don't want to do this in this way. If there's another way, open up the windows now and let that be different. The physical pieces of that, wanting, his people, the people who's his ride or die, sit up and pray with me, and they're falling asleep. Yeah. And he's like, okay, well, let me journey on. Because I'm in this by myself. I gotta find my center. I gotta get connected back to my source to move forward in the way that only I can do, because everybody can't go this way. Everybody doesn't want to go this way, right? And that literally is a lot of what happens when folks are experiencing some sort of mental health disorder. You can have people around you, but yet still very alone in it, right? So even when he said to the disciples, right, to his favorites, yes, you can't even watch and pray 1 hour with me. Yeah. Like, okay, I got this. I'm gonna have to figure this out for myself then. Did you ever feel like, I know you come from a big family. Yeah. Beautiful big family. Did you ever, though, feel like, even though I have friends and family who care about me, they don't get it? What got you through that? Because to know that people love you, if anyone listening, right, is in that moment where they're like, why does this person caring about me not translate into them being able to help me or see it the way that I am as I wrestle with my own peace, whether it's a diagnosable mental health issue or crisis, or whether it's really just extended stress or feeling burnt out and it doesn't seem like people understand
Yeah.
their perspective. How do you make sense of that?
Yeah, two things. One, it is sometimes hard for people to put themselves in that space because they don't want to admit that it could also be them.
Oh,
Right?
that's good. Oh, that's a different way of thinking about that.
The second thing is it's not meant for everybody to help you through. Even though they're your favorite, your cousin, your favorite auntie, your mama, your daddy, right? They're not going to get it. And it's not for them to get. And so you have to make a decision to receive their love, understanding that love doesn't always come with understanding. But I think the biggest piece of it is that our minds are so fragile. Is the idea of someone that shares your DNA, shares your name. Well, if you're experiencing this, is it possible that I could too? And not allowing themselves to even think of that as an option. So it's like, let me just distance myself from it because I don't want to even put myself in the position of thinking that this too could be possible for me.
That's a really different perspective. And I think it helps shift from blame to people who are in our lives who maybe not understand the journeys that we're on, to one of ownership of this is where I am. God, help me with where I am.
Right.
And send who you'll send.
Yeah.
One of the things that I realized in going through chronic health issues for many years and a pregnancy loss and, just a lot of things that physically were so draining for me that it started to take a toll emotionally and mentally, where I just felt like I couldn't go back to whoever I was. And so there's a type of grief, a type of death that happens to say, you are no longer the same. And it feels like you've lost something. And trying to wrestle with that, trying to understand, how do I hear God clearly? How do I hear my spouse who has his own journey of, especially around the pregnancy loss, his own journey there,
Right.
but in other ways doesn't know what I'm walking through. So it feels unique, even as there's love there and there's support and there's a desire to encourage. There's also an isolation that happens. And it really is around that. How do I even get the energy to care for myself or allow someone to care for me, especially if you used to be in the strong friend, honey. You're the one everybody goes to. I know in your line of work, you are a resource. You are a person that people trust to say, hey, I need help. Can I get some feedback here? Can I get a referral here? Can I get assistance here? Can I get food for myself, for my child, today? How was that mentally, the mindset to say, I need support at a different level? Maybe my people will get it. Maybe they won't.
Right.
But God, I'm here with you and I need help.
Yeah.
People cannot today lean on me to fix them. I have to say no, or I have to say I am not available so that I can get the support and the care that I need, or give it to myself. What was that moment like to realize you were worthy of care in that moment in your life?
Yeah.
And not just the person who gives the care.
I honestly did not want to feel that bad anymore.
I know. Ugh.
That's literally
so
what
real.
Motivates me to say, okay, you've been in this place too long.
Yeah.
You've been here a couple of days, a week, and it's not getting any better. If that means telling everybody else no, putting everything else on pause, letting all the cards fall, whatever it is, you've got to figure out a way out of this, is because I remember what it felt like to have lost my mind.
Yes.
And never want to go back there again.
Ever.
And so that's enough for me to say, I'm doing too much. I'm getting overwhelmed. I need to pause. And I've also forced myself to be more comfortable to say, I need, right?
Yeah.
So if you're my friend, you're my family, you say you care about me, you love me, there's got to be somebody that I can call and say, I would really like for someone to do X, Y, and Z for me today.
Yeah.
I really need a friend to do this for me today. And being okay with saying that. And sometimes just saying it out loud was enough, even if they couldn't, for whatever legitimate reason there was. Not just because they didn't feel like it, they didn't want to, but they have their spouses, their families, their job. It's just, but being able to vocalize, it's okay for me to need somebody too.
Yeah.
Was sometimes enough. Even if the thing I wanted or desired or needed, I couldn't get in that moment. Just feeling as though I trusted myself enough and trusted the circle that I've built to be able to vocalize it has been a tremendous help.
That's a really excellent point. And I feel like there are people at home who, if you do not practice asking for what you need from the people that you love, what you're really saying is you don't trust them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really comes down to that you're the trustworthy one. They can ask you all day long, but you're not willing to be the vulnerable one.
Yeah.
And actually, Henry Cloud, the author of Boundaries, that book changed my life.
That's a good one.
One of the things that he talked about was how selfish it is to not ask for what you need. And I remember reading that line 3 times. Like, I don't understand what you mean. I am the unselfish one. I am the giver. And he's like, exactly. You've somehow, if you are only a giver and you reject people who want to serve you and you say, no, I don't need that. You look down on being a receiver, which means you look up to yourself on being the giver.
Wow.
And you are selfishly positioning yourself to say, oh, I'm the person who is equipped and empowered to help, but others, they're not equipped and empowered to help me. So now we're not talking about reciprocity.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it, and we do, right? We talk about the takers, honey. We talk about the people who we like, now you know how they are. You know that they go ask all the time. They'll be the takers, and takers will take as long as there's something for them to take. Yeah. But we don't, so we talk over takers. We don't talk about overgivers. We don't talk about the selfishness that's there, the inauthenticity. Yeah. Because everybody does need something at some point. And are we in a real enough partnership, relationship, friendship, or even working coworker relationship that there's a reciprocal nature of how we communicate, that you are willing to say that. And I can hear people now, as I've served clients in life coaching and leadership development for years, but they're not going to help. They're not going to do it. And I'll say, are they not going to do it? Or what do you mean? Well, they're not going to do it the way I want it. That's the difference. Yeah. They're not going to do it as fast as I could. And by the time I asked them and wait for them to do it, I could have just done it myself. Oh, are we jinx? We got to knock on wood. Yeah. Right? And we hear ourselves say it. And there's that condition again. It's not just I need help. It's that you need to deliver it to me in the way that I would deliver it superiorly to me, the way I think I deliver it to you. Then in that case, again, that's not nurturing the relationship to say, I'm worthy of receiving the care. I'm worthy of sitting back and saying, I can receive support in the fashion that God allowed friend, family, or a stranger to come bless me because God is my provision. Absolutely. Right? I think about that so often, how many times I've been in those places and points where maybe family wanted to be there, but they couldn't. They're at work. They're in difficult places. And God would allow someone who is not a best friend, who's not a cousin or something, someone who's maybe a coworker or someone, literally some moments, have you ever had that happen where you might be sitting at a coffee shop or a restaurant and just a conversation about nothing. Yep. Can you pass the sugar on the table turns into those divine moments where you're like, God, did you just bless me out the blue like this? And you walk away feeling more encouraged. You feel lighter. And you're like, you know what? I have to remember that it doesn't have to, my help doesn't come from any individual one person. It's not limited to that. My help comes from the Lord. That's right. So that means my care can come from any number of places.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that has felt like when I realized that.
Yeah.
That God is not limited in how he can care for me or who might show up to provide that care.
Yeah.
It took away for me the limited expectation on what care I was able to receive.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'm not looking for a person or a specific place for care to happen for me.
Yeah.
I'm sitting with my hands open saying, God, I need.
Mm-hmm.
God, I need. God, I need. God, I need. I can't do it. You're going to have to do it because I cannot. And at this time, I won't even try. I tried. Listen, I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one. Y'all let me know if I'm the only one. You tell me if you've ever had this moment where you are literally on the verge of the break. Like you can feel it happening or it's about to come. You're like, I need to stop. I need to drink water. I need to eat. I need to cancel the meetings for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And then you just still try to push through. You ever had that moment?
Yes. And it's disastrous.
It's a disaster. It is a literal, like, it is literal chaos.
Yes.
That ensues after.
Absolutely.
And honey, the work gonna get done. The conference gonna happen. Okay, the event's gonna be fine. My daughter will look fabulous. And we send her away. And as soon as the sun goes down, as soon as the door closes to the car, as soon as the house gets locked and everybody else is gone, a complete breakdown.
Yeah.
And for me, that has also shown up in my health, where it won't be mentally I'm broken down. I'm just tired. I'm exhausted emotionally, but I'll be sick for a week out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, you was doing you should have stopped. You were overextending yourself. You were over functioning.
Yeah.
You were not measuring adequately the amount of stress that you can handle at this time. You needed to offload. You said yes too quickly and too often when some of those answers needed to be no, or let me circle back in 24 hours when I had a moment to think about that for real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you recover from those moments when you're like, I have to push through. I got to be there for the young people, the kids. I got to do all these things. How do you recover from serve, disrupt, do the meetings and the work that you do, and then to come back to a place where you're like, okay, Lord, I want to hear from you. I want to be rejuvenated, restored.
Yeah.
Or I just want to sit in the, massage chair and the massage table and the, get a pedicure, manicure. What does your care look like when you're recovering from the serving that you do?
Yeah, it is like shutting the door to the world, really. It is like, watching mindless TV. Sometimes I'm literally sitting on my couch, staring at the wall. There's not a sound playing at all. I'm not scrolling on nobody's social.
Yes.
I'm just staring at the wall, right? And that may sound ludicrous to somebody else, but for me, it is, I need to quiet my mind.
Yes.
I don't want to think about what I'm interpreting on the television. I don't want to hear something on the radio that's going to trigger anything. I just want quiet and learning how to not rush through those moments.
That's so good.
Right? And then realizing that bit by bit, I find myself gravitating to something else, or just stopping to say, I haven't had my favorite meal in a long time, right? Or let me go watch a really cheesy movie from the 80s just because, I really loved it and I haven't seen it in a long time.
Let me laugh real good, okay? Let me laugh.
Find those things that do not require me to have to be on and just be.
I love
me
that.
Just sitting here is enough for me right now.
But I think that's undervalued so much, right? Even for myself, I'm learning to rest.
Yeah.
Learning it. And almost at what the kids say, at my big age. Why am I learning to rest as though it's a foreign concept?
I think it goes back to how we started this conversation about being Black women.
Yes.
Rest is not in our vocabulary, right?
That's so true.
I mean, in the 20th century, like, we're working professional jobs, still trying to better our minds through education.
Yeah.
We're the ones that are serving the most in churches. We're the ones taking care of our spouses and partners and children and parents and aunties and uncles and cousins and family friends, right? We're usually the strong friend. Like, the word rest does not fit on any schedule that we have, right? And so we've had to learn how to rest, because a lot of us have been taught that you add value to the community you're in by doing.
Yes, only doing.
Only doing.
Yes.
And we have not taught our community that your value is in being. And so because we want to be the sister friend or the perfect wife or the perfect mom or whatever, we keep doing, overextending ourselves till our bodies give out. And now we're forced to rest. And now other people have not learned how to do things for themselves. So now you feel guilty about resting because they're not getting their stuff done, because they're not equipped, because they never had to learn how to do it, because they were looking for a Black woman to fix it.
You better get out of my text messages right now. You just stepping all over my toes, okay? But I think it's important because it is a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Right? And part of what the purpose of this conversation with you and the conversations that I want to have on this platform is to, in essence, disrupt the idea that it has to be that way.
Yeah.
That it's this way or no way.
Yeah.
That it's the only way. That self-neglect and over-functioning and overworking are the only ways that we know how to be. The only ways that we feel worthy of care. If I work hard, and I mean hard, okay? Not just work. Work hard. And I go, and I accomplish this and check this off, and I get that degree and this certification and work with, everybody else is working with 100 clients. I work with 200 clients, okay? If I have demonstrated enough of that, then for myself,
right,
I think then now I deserve a break. Not even rest. I deserve a break.
Right.
I deserve to have care. I deserve love. I can earn it.
Yeah.
And what I had to learn when I was working through being bedridden, there is no way for me to earn the care and concern that I need right now. So I have to surrender.
Yeah.
And I need to receive the care that is coming to me.
Yeah.
And I need to ask for the care that sometimes, because people are like, oh, she good. She didn't say she needed anything. I'm saying it now, friend. That will not be the situation moving forward. I'm going to say, is this thing on?
Yeah.
Let me text you. Let me send a smoke signal. A pigeon courier is around your way. Because I'm going to say it. I'm going to say, and I may even have to say, I don't even know what I need, but I need something. I need you to come sit with me to help me figure out what I need. I need some support today, and I know you're not used to that. And maybe it makes you uncomfortable to think that you have to stop what you're doing to come help me. But I am in need of the kind of support and the kind of nourishment
I will give you.
that I would give.
Yeah.
And so I'm about to put the notices out, okay? Yeah. Send the text threads, put the prayer line on, pass it along the way. Let everybody know. Everyone's. But that was such a huge moment of growth for me. Yeah. But it felt forced. And so now I'm learning without the threat of an emergency.
To lean into it.
Yeah. So what advice would you have for me? I want your, you know me a little, you know, a little something. I want to know what advice you have for me as, the person who loves community.
Yeah.
And I'm not shying away from reaching out to others. I want people to pour into me. And I'm asking you, and I'm going to ask all of my guests, what's one thing that y'all think that I can do to be better equipped to receive care and to have rest?
Yeah, I would say to shift your mind from being a caretaker of the community to becoming a member of the community. And so when you shift your mind from the responsibility that I have to take care of these people and position yourself as a member of the group that is also to be taken care of, it makes it a little easier to then receive it.
That's so funny because and on another episode, I explained the title, The Sis Take Care. But what you said is super profound because the take care isn't actually go take care. It's actually to take the care. Take the care that's available. Take the care that's offered. Like receive it and hold that and like allow it to be. Because even as we say, take care, it almost still sounds like something else you still got to go do yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that's always been my trouble with the language of self-care is the care that you give yourself. But that also sounds like some more work I got to do.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, I'm out. I'm fresh out of works I have to do. Exactly. Right? So how do I take care of me if I'm already at my wit's end? And the goal obviously is to not be at your wit's end.
Right.
It's to maintain, to care for yourself throughout so that you don't get to the breaking point where you're at your wit's end.
Right.
And then you need to then be bandaging your own wounds, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so just unpacking that and understanding that has been really gracious. So thank you for that nugget of wisdom. I wanted to say one other thing and give you the opportunity to share because we talked a little bit about how big your family is. But in the name of your amazing father and in his legacy and the work that that he imparted in you, you, in addition to all the other amazing things, started a company as an entrepreneur with a food product that my family personally loves. We absolutely do. We're waiting for our particular favorite to get back in stock. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah. So you're speaking of Caravan Spice Company, and it was a nod to my father who passed away in 2000. My father and I, through him, am of Gullah Geechee descent. And so a lot of my father's way that he took care of us was through food. And it was always things that none of my friends in Virginia Beach ever ate. Like, I would go to school in third grade and they would be like, well, what did you eat for dinner last night? And I'm like, fish head soup. It's like, what? Right? Or understanding that we had rice by the 50-pound bag on the floor that we would scoop out every day. And I could probably give you 50 different variations of how to use rice. But I wanted to find a way that kind of infuse some of those flavors, some of that inspiration, and, what allowed him to share his love for us. And so, we have things like Gullah Gullah, which is kind of our seafood seasoning. We have things for, your veggies, and just to also make it easy for folks who may not want to spend a lot of time trying to cook. Like, I'm not trying to be a chef. I don't want to perfect recipes. I want to cook it and make it feel good. You can grab a spice bottle or two, depending on what your flavor palette looks like, and that should be enough for you, right? Low salt, low sodium. Being able to use the herbs and the spices, and just really hoping that it encourages people to connect through food with their family, but also being careful about it being hand blended so there's no preservatives in it.
Come on, healthy. Tasty but healthy.
Trying to make it something that's holistic for folks. So
I love it. I love it. Eat Your Greens.
Eat Your Greens
is one of the favorites. And what's the everything seasoning?
Oh yeah, that's our all-purpose seasoning.
Oh my gosh, I love that one. There's so many favorites. Okay, controversial question.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Is gumbo done right in the Gullah Geechee tradition, or is it New Orleans?
I say both and because they're different.
They're very, very
different, right? They're different. So I'm not even gonna put my foot in my mouth with that one. I am partial to the gullah.
I see how you dodging the question.
Partial to gullah, right? But we do more stews, more soups, you know. So we let the New Orleans folks have the gumbo.
Yes, y'all put I can't say everybody because there's different variations even in the Gullah Geechee tradition. Yeah. But what's the one significant difference that you feel like from the New Orleans gumbo style and then the Gullah Geechee style?
Yeah, I think honestly it's probably the spices and the addition to seafood that is more readily available in other areas, right?
Sure.
So like New Orleans, you may have crawfish, right?
Yes.
We're not necessarily gonna have crawfish in ours. Like it's more shrimp based, right? Because of the white shrimp that kind of comes from the Atlantic Ocean and all of that. But I would say that some of the spices and then just the addition of different, seafood that may be a part of it. And then also what Gullah Geechee does that a lot of New Orleans folks don't do is that we will find ways to put okra in everything.
I was waiting for you to bring up that point because that's really the biggest like 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
You talk to somebody from New Orleans, they be like, okra does not belong.
Yeah.
My people from Louisiana, they from Jeanerette in the interior of the state, and so they say okra does not belong. In the gumbo.
Look,
but when I was in South Carolina, honey,
you're gonna have okra in there somewhere,
had okra,
baby.
Tomatoes.
Because you're gonna have okra soup over rice.
Okay.
You're gonna have okra soup when you eat mashed potatoes. You're gonna put okra soup over your grits.
Wait, okra soup in the grits. Okay, now you got my mind thinking. Okay. So I love that though. We have to come back and have another conversation about how amazing the diaspora is with food and culture, and culturally rich places. But I wanted to thank you so much, Kacey, for being our guest on Sis Take Care podcast. And how can we pray for you?
Oh, for some more time in the day.
Some more time in the day. So I can serve and disrupt and also
read
rest
and write and rest and all of that.
Finish your PhD.
Really that just God continues to give me strength, right?
Absolutely.
To do the things, but strength enough to know when I have to put the things down.
And to that we say ashe and amen.
Ashe and amen.
Thank you so much for being here, girl. I'm so happy. This is such a dream come true.
Oh, thank you.
Yay. All right, folks, listen. Check out the next podcast. We're going to have amazing guests just like this. Please go pick up Kacey's book, Wrestling with Peace, and we'll have the link in the bio. Peace.